I have a theory that it's down because we're looking at the same thing. Everybody's running the same plays. At the top of the key, dribble handoff. I was talking to a coach yesterday. He said they want to shoot 53s. Because, they were trying to contemplate if I could play in this era. And it's like, yo, Shaq, we would just shoot 53s. And I was like, well, how much you want to make? We want to make about 10 or 15 of them. I was like, well, that's not going to help you win. But I think everybody's looking at the same thing. And Steph Curry and those guys messed it up. Like, I don't mind Golden State back in the day shooting threes, but every team's not a three-point shooter. So why everybody has the same strategy? I think viewership will continue to go down unless we switch things back up.
On that TNT opening night, there were 2 games. There were 162 threes shot in those 2 games alone. Guys like Anthony Edwards right now are shooting like 10 threes a game. They were shooting half of that last year. And when asked, what do you think about people that want you to drive to the lane? He says, fuck them, because this is what the coaches want.
Ant saying "come" is great. So, surprise, surprise, no skims, no Giannis print as the advertising request. But friend of the show, family of the show, Kenny Beecham also had 2 cents to put in.
So I think we have a problem with the product. Now, I am not one of those people.
Let me say this. Kenny put this shit on like 2.5 off rip when he uploaded it. This is not me speeding through it.
I was about to say, yo, that's crazy.
I say, who disrespecting my man Kenny speeding up his clip like that?
Look, when I played it on my phone, this is exactly what I did. I was, settings. Hold on. So this is Kenny speeding up the clip. That's not us.
Love the way the NBA is. But again, I'm speaking for the fan that is not the diehard that gets paid to watch these games. We also have a problem with the way the game is played. I used to be, a few years back, I used to be a diehard Apex Legend player. My days consisted of watching basketball from 6 to midnight, right? Recording videos from midnight to 2. Then when I wake up at 10 a.m. the next morning, I was on Apex until the game started again. I was a grinder. One of the worst things about that was there was a meta. And if you're an Apex Legend fan, there's always a meta. But specifically during that era when I was grinding, the meta was Bangalore, Seer, and Valkyrie. Kenny, what are you getting on here? Why are we talking about Apex Legends? Because in order for me to climb up the ranks in ranked, I needed to play the meta. My 3 couldn't compete unless we had a Seer. We couldn't compete unless we had a Valk that can get us out of sticky situations. We couldn't compete if we didn't have the smokes of Bangalore. Anytime you shifted away from the meta, for me, that's not like, again, one of the top players in the world, we lost games. The NBA also has a meta problem, where if you're not one of the teams that is jacking up 43 pointers a game, it is almost impossible for you to win. There's a meta problem, and there's no way around it. You could have 2 top 10-ish players in basketball, but if you are not running the meta, things won't look amazing.
Now I gotta take my little victory lap for just 2 seconds. We are finally past the I'm not gonna lie, it's streaming sites. We're past that now.
Shit.
We can now have real actually that time period pissed me off so fucking bad 3-4 years ago. I'm not
they still gonna bring it up, to be fair.
Don't do that.
It's streaming sites, bro. It's streaming sites. Producer Cruz has some numbers that talk about, maybe it is the game. Pre-2010s teams displayed a broader range and pace. For instance, in the 2008-2009 season, fastest team, Warriors at 96.7 possessions per game. Slowest team was the Detroit Pistons, 83.6 possessions per game, and pace standard deviation was around 3.2. Post-2012, the range narrowed as more teams adopted a similar fast pace. For example, 2022-2023 season, fastest team was the San Antonio Spurs, surprisingly, 104 points per game. Cavs were the slowest team at 98 points per game. Standard deviation was around 1.7. Some other stats, pre-2010s teams had a wide range in mid-range shot frequency. Mid-2000s league average, about 32% of all shots were mid-range, with some teams like the San Antonio Spurs and Detroit Pistons using the mid-range heavily. Standard deviation in mid-range shot percentage, approximately 5 to 7% of total shot attempts. Post-2012, let's looking at the 2013 season. Only about 12 to 15 of all shots were mid-range. About 2 to 3% of total attempts. There's multiple ways to take this. Damo, from a guy who has put the ball in the basket before in his life, do you think that Shaq and Kenny have some validity to their takes about the game being the same and that being the problem?
They have validity in saying that the game is the same. They're wrong when they say that is the problem. Let me not say that. It's obviously a problem if people aren't tuning in and watching. It has to be a problem. The style of play has to be a turnoff for some people. I won't not acknowledge that. I personally don't believe that it's a problem because the NBA has always had a meta problem throughout history. I'm just thinking about since the 2000s and the time I've watched basketball. I've sat here in the last 60 seconds while you were speaking because I knew I was coming up. The teams that have made the finals and won the finals since 2000, just off the top of my head, start ringing them off. And it was a consistent thing with the teams that did win for the most part. There was a simple formula people ran. One or two premier guys, genuine role players around them. One very, very, very prolific perimeter player or a guy that's going to score from the mid-range and the post, because that's considered the perimeter then, being able to stretch the perimeter, to mid-range. A guy like that in a prolific defensive system. Or not even that, just relying on those guys. The abnormalities would be the Pistons. They won without following that system. The abnormalities would be the Magic who made the finals. Didn't win, but win against the system. The Nets who made the finals, win against the system. But for the most part, there was a meta with teams that did win. And then we have the big three with the Celtics, which didn't lead to the big three with the Heat, which didn't lead to super teams. And there has always been a meta. The NBA is always going to follow a meta. I think analytics as a whole is a problem. I don't think it's just the chucking up threes. Hey, everybody chucking up threes. It is what it is. I think it's beatable because you're not going to hit every night. In my opinion, I don't believe you'll hit. I can't sit back and just say, oh man, something has to be done. But I don't think it's 3-point shooting. I don't think, hey man, Shaq hand on the post is just that's not working today. I don't think that's going to make people just tune back into basketball. There's not about to be a lot of classic pick and rolls or Princeton sets or whatever people want to see in terms of the style of the game for teams. That's going to make people just pick the game back up and just watch it again. That's not going to be the fix.
B-Souls is a proponent, and I want to hear from his perspective before I get Sage's. B-Souls is a proponent of injuries being the problem, if I'm not mistaken. From friends of the show, Playback.tv, watch Playback, friend of the show, says KD out for 1 to 2 weeks, Zion out indefinitely, Kawhi out indefinitely, Ja Morant out for 1 to 2 weeks, Paolo out 4 to 6 weeks. Tyrese Maxey out 2 to 3 weeks. Scotty Barnes out 2 to 3 weeks. I think somebody else got announced today that they were out. Chet out for a period of time. Does the NBA? Yeah. How many weeks?
8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah, it's bad.
Does the NBA have an injury problem? How do they fix it? I know that's an angle that people have been attacking it from. B-Souls, do you think that there's validity in that?
I think the NBA does have an injury problem. It's just a matter of what can they actually do to fix it or even control it to any degree. I just think with the things that they can control, the pace of the game, they can control it. But long story short, essentially what I'm trying to get at is the NBA does have an injury problem, but in terms of all the problems that the NBA has, I can't just pinpoint it to one different thing. In my quote retweet of that tweet, I mentioned that the NBA has a bunch of different problems. It just depends on you as to how you would weigh each and every single problem. But I think they have an injury problem. They have a marketing problem, a ratings problem, a way the game is played problem. The face of the league, which kind of a lot of these things coincide with each other. But yeah, no, I think the NBA has a lot of little problems right now that's starting to add up.
So I see people in the chat saying there are a lot of leagues that have had injury problems. Apparently the NFL over the past couple of years has had an injury problem. Baseball has had an injury problem for a little while. Sage, I want to pose to you though, Another potential thing. Besolzis talked about injuries. Damo has talked about play on the field. Brian Windhorst brings us in because we know how the media can affect these things. Brian Windhorst says the NBA media is not in a good place. NBA media right now, we're not in a great place because I think we're devaluing things that help build the league up. Blah. Like one of the things is storytelling. Everything is too short right now. People are too focused on tweets, too focused on guys getting crossed over, guys getting dunked on, guys getting embarrassed, social media posts, not as much on the storytelling. Learning about players and learning their backgrounds, what I call chronicling the season. You got these three things right here, Sage. Out of these three things, what do you think is the biggest problem with the NBA right now?
Well, if I must choose between the three, it's close between stories and 3-point shooting. I hear injuries, but I raise you the NFL, and I'll talk about that when I get to what I believe the issue is. But I guess by a hair, I'll go with 3-point shooting because that's more so the underlying issue that everyone's kind of hooping the same. And I know we're on Keep It a Buck. I know we're the basketball. Yeah, we're basketball pod? I don't know. Anyway, I know that we're supposed to be the basketball YouTubers per se, but if you're not a actually nerd and you like just decompress and try to accept what's being said right now, you'll realize I'm not saying that the Golden State Warriors and the Milwaukee Bucks play the exact same kind of basketball. But what I am saying is, yes, the NBA has always been a copycat league, but it's gotten pretty extreme. Like it's gotten very extreme to the point where it kind of doesn't even fit a lot of players to play like the way they are. I just randomly was searching the top scorers in the league and then sorting their 3-point attempts just to kind of like see the names. And you would think this list would be dominated by, I don't know, Steph Curry. And then after that, I don't fucking know, Klay Thompson, shit like that. Well, Klay in 2024, so I take that back. The Melo shooting, I believe 13, unless I don't know how to fucking read. Ant shooting 12, Tatum shooting 11.5, Maxey shooting 11, Luka shooting 10, Trey 9, Dame 9, Peyton Pritchard 9. Okay, I must be on some other shit. Jalen Green 9, Kobe White 10. I mean, like 9. Like the amount of players even shooting above 8 threes is already like, oh wow. But let alone just the amount of teams that are just firing off bad 3-point shooters are shooting threes, all these other things, just because it's that much of a strategical advantage. I'm not saying that there haven't been cases where a bad shooter has tried to stress the floor in the past, or a bad defender has been trying to lift their shorts up and defend in the past, but I think we would all be dishonest trying to be actually fans if we couldn't admit that this is clearly an extreme, or at least a more eye-popping version of the copycat league. So it's very repetitive, but I do think that the superstardom thing is very close since nobody talked about it. Damo will cook me for this till the end of time. Chat gang, there's reasons why Patrick Mahomes exists. There's reasons why Shohei Ohtani exists. There's a reason why in the WWE Roman Reigns acknowledge him exists. You need a guy. And the basketball community is so non-team fandom, and it's so heavy player fandom that maybe that's the reason they don't have a guy. Most importantly, they just haven't marketed someone that's like a clear-cut guy. Maybe it's because it lacks domination. I don't know.
And that's your thing that you believe is the issue. Damn, Damo.
I don't think that's the issue. I think all of these things play a part. If I had to pick my issue just so I could let Damo go, I think it's low key player fandom. I think it's low key. The hidden evil of it all is the people that said, "Hey, I'm not a fan of the Heat anymore. I'm a fan of LeBron. I'm not a fan of blank anymore. I'm a fan of this," because now it's kind of taken away the we rep this squad identity. It's taken away the it's taken away like the aura, I guess, of going to certain arenas. Now it's about seeing X player, Y player, or whatever. And it isn't the same. It's just, I can't put it into words, but it's truly not the same.
The point on the NFL has Pat, MLB has Shohei is so nasty to compare in the NBA because those guys put in I don't want to say put in a crazy amount of work, because there's basketball players that put in a crazy amount of work, but they have done something to be that guy. Sitting around waiting for an NBA, a guy to do something we've never seen before so he can be that guy, to me is pointless. And there's way more guys in basketball than there is in baseball, in football. I'm just comparing it to American sports, because once you get over to soccer, that's when it gets nuts. So I'm just keep with American sports that's real big over here. We don't say baseball and football. Basketball players are the most recognizable in terms of professional sports. They have some of the, at least for maybe just because it's our timeline, but in terms of standum and stands and people who are super parasocial with athletes, I feel like it's more prevalent with basketball players, because I promise you, I don't see and man, that was gonna be a bad example. I don't see the Muse pages for just the Peyton Pritchard's of football for real. And maybe that's just because it's not on my timeline. In comparison, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Somebody tell me I'm wrong.
I don't think that's valid, because it's not that you're necessarily wrong. Mike Williams, Muse, GP Muse, those things exist. I was just naming the Steeler ones. Those things exist, but that's my thing. We're talking about the star players. Like, yeah, and it's not even necessarily about proving things. I think that's incorrect as well. Case in point, the NFL was quick to give you Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Quick as shit. It was an immediate trigger. Hell, in the same division, you talk about a player that hasn't done shit. And let's talk about the guy that you don't like. Lamar Jackson is box office instantaneous. Like the second he was on the screen, it was like go. In the NBA, whether it's fandom, whether it's the media, whether it's just the way the product is presented, you know how long it took for people to be like, oh yeah, Jokic is a dog, oh yeah, Luka is a dog, like all these other things. But like in fucking football, the shit was like instantaneously. It didn't take that long for Jettas to be like one of them ones. And it didn't take long. And those stars have propelled the league, as well as also having a team identity to be like that second tier. So at first tier, you got to have your stars, but then immediately it's team identity. Niggas ain't just saying I'm Aiden Hutchinson fans. People just love the fucking Lions, but you don't really have too many teams like that in the NFL. Every team in the NFL, outside of, I suppose, the Lakers, because that's just living off of historics in the NBA, I suppose. But in terms of modern day basketball, yeah, every now and then you'll love Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels because of the quote one time. You'll like, I don't know, you'll be different in like Boston because everybody hates Boston. But you don't have like those teams that everybody just wants to root for anymore. You have players, but you don't really have the team. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to word it right because I'm not the best at this shit. But I'm telling you, I think we all have been there to see it's a difference between rooting for KD to finally get a ring on the Suns and rooting for the Baby Thunder. I think we've all been there, so we all know what I'm talking about. I'm just not saying it right.
Before we get into the rest of this clip, I want to shout out the sponsors of this video, PrizePicks, our personal favorite way to play daily fantasy sports.
Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous number of stat types and players makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app that we like over here.
The NBA season is back, so let's go ahead and make some picks for this opening week. I don't even think I need to ask you this, right? He's getting more than 25.5 points.
Yeah. This is MVP season.
This is a risky one. Is Russ hitting 1-3 against the Thunder? Just one.
I'm gonna go less.
Let's go ahead and put $10 on this entry right here. Click submit lineup, and boom, that is how you make a lineup on PrizePicks.
Go to PrizePick.com and type in code LKIAB to receive a guaranteed $50 when you play $5 in lineup. That's code LKIAB, guaranteed $50, $5 lineups. It's just that simple.
Shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring this video, and back to the clip.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's my point. In football and baseball, they would be more. The fans, especially diehard fans, even casual fan, will be more willing to support a team and root for a team versus a player, because in basketball, it's a lot more parasocial. People get a lot more connected with the actual players. I'm not saying the league does that. I'm just saying that is a trend when it comes to the fans. In basketball, it is way too easy to just say, I am a Kobe fan, I'm a LeBron fan, I'm a Jordan fan, I'm this, that, and third. Even when it came to football, all-time great players, people still would sit there and say, oh, even though I am a fan of this team because of Calvin Johnson, I'm still a Detroit fan to this day. It's a difference in the fandom. So that's why I said, when you bring up the Shoheis and Pat Mahomes of the world, I think that is unfair when it comes to basketball, because those guys, it took a minute for them to become that. They weren't just made that from day one. Niggas did not know Shohei was going to be who Shohei was at the beginning. With Pat Mahomes, that was an earned thing. That was something we've never seen before. A guy that's rivaling Tom Brady in terms of his ability to win championships. No one thought someone would be able to actually compete and win as much as Tom, and he looks like he's on that path. So they have a right to be ushered into that. When it comes to basketball, all we can do is sit here, unless we're going to sit here and rehash LeBron and Steph and KD for the umpteenth time. It's going to be, all right, is Paolo that got guys? Oh, nah, he's not ready. He's not ready. Is it time for Anthony Edwards? Oh, nah, he lost in the second round. Nah,
I
he's
like
not
that
ready.
you pointed this out, though.
Is it Jason Tatum? Oh, nah, he's light-skinned. Like, that's an issue in itself. Like, that's the difference.
No, I agree. I agree with you. Obviously, I like don't agree with the fact that it like shouldn't count or whatever. But I do agree with. I think we're on the same page here in terms of like whether like what I'm saying. It's just a matter of if you think it's right or wrong. But I will say this: the reason why I do think that it is the issue is because even if, let's say, your overall point that it's unfair is true, you know what this like journey of team fandom versus player fandom does take you? It takes you to, as some people in chat have identified, and I wrote down on my notes, lack of rivalries. Again, it's something that you hate me when I say it, but I think at this point it's getting fairly obvious the more time goes on. There's a difference between the Chiefs and the Bengals. There's a difference between the Steelers, the Ravens, the Commanders, and the Cowboys. Granted, they ain't gonna hit this year because the Cowboys suck, but there's a difference between NFL rivalries and like, okay, I guess the Suns and the T-Wolves don't like each other. like, you know what I'm saying? It's the only team that even remotely gets people upset is Boston, and that's just one team. And people don't even like how Boston is. They think this is the or-less team that's just good at basketball.
I do want to ask everyone: do y'all think there's more player movement in other sports compared to the NBA? Or just about the same? There's
more players, so that's unfair. I'll say of all the things that's unfair for Damo here, I think we'll agree here. A player movement probably low-key is the same, but that's unfair because in football there's like 22 people on the field.
Your main thing should be like star player movement.
Oh, star players?
Yeah. Ultimately what I'm saying though is
what the star, but it's close.
Ultimately what I'm saying is like it's hard to build these team rivalries and stick with a team when player movement is so rampant that you can't follow the Celtics. Well, Celtics might be different, but you can't follow, I don't know, the Magic because their team 3 years ago was so completely different compared to now. Hell, same thing with like the Warriors, the Lakers. Like it's just hard to build these storylines when everyone is moving. So like to Damo and Sage's point, I think fans are forced to like, yeah, we got to follow players because that's the only thing consistent. Like, the team is not. They may get traded. They may leave in a year or two, but we will follow the player wherever they go. But go ahead.
I think my main thing in this conversation is, like, I'm glad we're finally talking about it. For real. I was joking at the beginning, but there's some seriousness in it. Because I can just remember 3 years ago when I was saying this, and me and my corner of the internet can now come out of hiding. The NBA has a problem. It's been here for some time now. People just take one or two moments and say that it doesn't have a problem. Look at this one moment. Look at this. But the problem has been bubbling for a long time now, and it's been more than 3 years. But now we are just sitting in it, and we can kind of get some vindication. You can say the streaming numbers. You can say all that bullshit, but everybody else is doing numbers and passing and having these historical seasons. And the NBA is stagnant / on a decline. I think ultimately all of these things play a part into it. Maybe the style of play is producing more injuries, and that could be universal for all sports. But maybe the style of play is producing more injuries. I saw a graphic earlier that was like the amount of miles they're running now is more than ever. It's not necessarily because of pace, because there was a time where pace was higher. This is not like the highest pace that we've seen before. It's the amount of space that people have. So that many miles, that much spacing, this style of play might have the people making the injuries. How much these athletes care to stay in one market or brand one team or whatever. Why does that matter if they're getting half their contracts, and this is football, half their contracts in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is going to $100,000? They're making money doing all these other things. What does any of that even matter? If this is going to get the clicks and the likes. Why would I do a detailed story thing? All these things play into it. I'm glad we're talking about it. The real when are we going to get the fix in? Because we can talk all we want. I think we should be proactive and be beforehand. When can the fix come in? When do we start talking about we can't control how the teams play. I'm ready for a team to scrap the meta and find out a different way. I think people have been disappointed with Wemby's season this season because they thought he was going to do more of the the old school stuff, get some of the more easy buckets, but it's not necessarily translating like that. There's going to be a team, though, as Damo would say, that's going to break off from the meta and do something different. What can we do from the other end of the spectrum to start being on the path of change?
I think the NBA got to get lucky. I know I've yapped a lot, so I'll keep it short, especially because Soul said he disagrees. I think the NBA just got to get lucky at this point. I don't think it's going to happen. Souls, I'll let you carry as to why. I think they just need a player to dominate. They need somebody. The NBA needs somebody who we can all admit, oh yeah, this nigga ain't gonna lose a couple times.
But what does that even look like though? Because there's arguments of Jokic being the greatest offensive player of all time, like the stuff he's doing because of how the surrounding people have failed. He's dominating, and it's not changing anything. The MVP race last year was ultra crazy numbers wise. And that didn't change anything last year. So what does dominating even look like?
So that's what I'm saying. I think at this point in time, the NBA had a certain set of rules, and kind of like with any video game, which is kind of like what Kenny was mentioning, the video game has been figured out. I'm sorry, like mathematically speaking, it just makes sense to prioritize chucking up threes and getting high percentage layups and getting to the line. The mid range is dead, post ups is dead, all these different things. So to me, if there is real change that's actually going to affect all these different things, maybe even affect statistical inflation, it is going to have to be a rule change that is radical, that a lot of people will be uncomfortable with, that a lot of people will be like, the NBA is doing too much. We're doing just fine. It is going to take one of those things. That's my stance. That there is no team that's going to change the meta. There is no... The game is figured out, so the game literally has to change.
No funny shit. Before anybody else goes, I hadn't looked at it. I've truly not been keeping up with basketball, and I only see what people say, and I know they've been saying he's going crazy. Jokic is averaging fucking 30, 14, and 12. But that's what I'm saying. It's like how much better can you really be?
It's sad. I'm gonna say something that sounds like some hating shit and point the knives at me, chat. It's sad because in this generation, them numbers is one ear out the other for a lot of people nowadays. It's like that shit just is getting normal. It's getting we have as a community started to normalize greatness. Because we'll look at this season. If he loses in the second round, he was dog shit. So it's tough. It's very tough.
I just disagree with a lot of shit niggas are saying up here.
Go ahead. Disagree.
Get it off, man.
In terms of
get it off. Hold on. Get it off is crazy though, B. So
that's insane work.
Telling another nigga to get it off. Semen alert.
Pause was needed.
No. One, I feel like Sage picked the wrong bigger problem to even initiate this conversation, because the media and the storytelling to me is why we are at this point. The fact that Jokic is averaging 34, 14, and 12, but if I go and look at the mainstream media, if I go and turn on the mainstream sports talk networks, all we're talking about is the fact that Bronny got his first 2 points in the G League. All we're going to be talking about is Giannis ready to get traded? What's going on with Darvin? Like, all we're going to talk about are the cash grabby shit. And then when you look on the YouTube side of things, it's not even at a point no more where niggas is doing this for the love of the game. Niggas is doing this as a career. So this pseudo what we're seeing on TV. So all people are going to talk about are the cash grabby things. No one is going to sit down and have a genuine conversation about how great Jokic is playing. No one's going to sit down and talk about how great X, Y, and Z of the real things going on in the game is. So I do believe the media is a way bigger issue than the TV ratings and the numbers. I would ask y'all, and I tried to find the TV ratings in terms of TV deals for the NBA. I couldn't find them. Cruz, if you could find that in terms of just the TV deals the NBA signed, because I don't want to just be yapping the yap. But I will ask y'all, what would y'all want in terms of, let's keep it a buck, what would y'all prefer? Would y'all prefer us to be, and I'm gonna just use arbitrary numbers, but 2 million views a month, but the channel's bringing in 5K? Or would y'all rather the channel bring in 800,000 views a month, but the channel's bringing in 12 to 13K in terms of revenue? What would y'all rather? The money or the views?
Depends what I'm talking about. Basketball. Say no. Nah. Most time, if I'm passionate about the subject, though, I get what you're getting at, because I agree when we talk about NBA YouTube. If I were to come in here as a passionate NBA YouTuber, a hot take, I actually would want views. I actually would want a community that I could debate with more and more.
I'd rather have the views. I ain't gonna lie. Now, there's a lot of context and like what those views are, depending like on those numbers, but I'd rather get the views because the money comes along with the views. At the
I'm about to say that's also like a trap card, because you already know niggas gonna be like, boy,
So
12K, you ain't never.
So Souls, you would say views. Omar, you said money, views, money.
No, that's fair. The views.
But at first you said money, but now you're saying
I said
views.
the money.
I'm taking the views / community. I get your point. Niggas ain't doing it for the love of the game. Sure.
But what I'm saying is, I'm not even talking about the YouTube side of things. I'm talking about for the NBA. When it comes around for the NBA and they gotta re-sign these TV contracts, if niggas is throwing them more and more money, are they about to view? Oh, hey, that viewership down 40%. Is that an L for them, or do they feel like they're taking an L if they're making more money on TV deals? If these TV syndicated stations, and I'm pretty sure I said that all wrong, that's not how it's supposed to be. But if these places and spaces are paying more money to get NBA games, even if the numbers will say, 20% less of people are watching, the numbers are down across the board for the NBA in terms of viewership compared to other sports, are we going to say, the NBA is down if they're making more money? That's on the TV deal numbers. But I just, what we would view as something being down or something taking an L might not be an L in the grand scheme of things to the motherfuckers making them decisions. For us, if the channel's making more money, motherfuckers might not care about the views looking how they look if we know more money coming in, but also vice versa. The views would help growth from the eyes perspective and everything like that. I can see that. Now, comparing a YouTube channel to the NBA is kind of crazy, but apples and oranges.
Omar might disagree with this, but I feel like a lot of people are just saying like, yo, this is just a start. Like, we're seeing where this is headed in. Can we try to stop this and because it's heading down a path that isn't looking good. Like, what are the things that we can do to stop this? Because, right, the deals are good now, but on the re-up and the numbers are down, are the deals going to be as good on the re-up? That's a question. I think they might just let themselves out, in a different way. So, even as a channel, I mean, we're a brand. If the views go down and the re-up is less, we'll try to just make a new offer where, we can make more money. So it went from 2 integrations a week to 10 integrations a week. It went from, we'll just do an ad read. Now we've got a poster in the back. Now we're wearing the shirts all the time. Now we're doing Instagram posts and stuff like that. They will find ways to just slut themselves out more and make money or whatever the case may be. I think this is why other leagues that come after do move slower. And I know people this whole summer, that's another part of my victory lap. This whole summer in the past couple of years, the WNBA's got a blueprint. Why not just follow the NBA? Gang, the NBA is a lot of people saying that the NBA is not good, and we can look at there's so much to support it. Why would you get on this track that leads you down this ultimately disastrous path? And it's interesting. It's hard to say disastrous when they report these gaudy numbers, but there's still clearly a problem. Oh my God, perfect example is 2K. Literally every single year, the numbers are up, the sales are up, the money's up. But as a community, we know for a fact that shit has gone downhill every single fucking year. The product is ass, and it is not heading down a good path. So